Hi team, so we're back in lockdown. As you know, this week's fundamental cycle subject is Juji gatame or arm bars. This subject goes for 2 weeks, okay? So this is the first part of the first week. In this cycle of arm bars, we're going to learn arm bars from guard, back, mount, side control, all different variations of those. But I'm going to still try and break it down like I have in the previous cycles of escapes and open guard and stuff, breaking it down with like laws rather than just technique after technique after technique. So how do we break this down with arm bars? Because there's like thousands of different styles and ways to do arm bars. So firstly, the way I like to process it in my mind is my chest facing my partner when I'm arm barring, or is my chest behind my partner? Well, what does that mean? So if Ruby's on her back, this would be chest facing Ruby, right? Because our chests are facing each other. The same would be, just roll over, is if we're in closed guard. Our chests are facing each other. So for when our chests are facing each other, side control too, I like to pull the arm to the center, or you need to get your arm to the center line. Remember the center line, the nose relative to the belly button, so up and down this way, vertical. We want to make sure we get our arms to the center line. So anytime our chests are facing each other, I need arm to center line. So how else does it work? If I was, sit on your butt, legs that way. If I was behind Ruby, it's the opposite. So now my chest is on Ruby's back. Now I don't want the arms to the center line. I want the arm out away from the center line, or particularly the elbow away from the center line. So the more I get Ruby's elbow away, the more chance I get to get arm bar. So that's like the dividing fork at the very start, is my chest facing my partner's back, or are we chest to chest, okay? And the same would be, okay, turtle. Same as if we're in turtle, if I was going to want to arm bar Ruby, I need the arm out, yeah, away. So if I was looking up an arm bar somewhere from here, I could get the arm bar this way. I could make Ruby roll over. You get your head tucked in there, Rubes, yeah. Make her roll over. Same thing, boom. So anytime your chest is behind them, out. Anytime you're facing chest to chest, elbow to center line, right? So first we're going to break this down from closed guard. So I'm in closed guard with Rubes. You can be done so many different variations. You can do fast speed ones, which we'll have a quick look at. You can do step-by-step ones, which I prefer, and we're going to look at as well. So if I was going to attack whichever arm, so Ruby's right arm, right? Make sure you get that somewhere near the center line relative to Ruby, not relative to me, right? It'll make sense in a second. So now the step-by-step process, I can start attacking. So my head, as I move the arm towards Ruby's center line, I always want to bias my head off to the side as well. So that can obviously be done in one motion here. Makes it much easier. Now we're going for a position which is commonly called the top lock, right? Once we get to the top lock, we're breaking it down step by step. So holding the arm, center line, controlling the posture, however you like. So if it was no gi, it'd be back of the head just like this. In the gi, you've got the collar. And now I go over the shoulder. Boom. Just the shoulder here. And you need to pinch your knees in together, all right? This is a strong position, commonly called, Danaher calls it top lock, and I've heard a few other people call it the top lock as well. Once we're in the top lock position, we're looking real good. You can do many attacks from the top lock to make your partner tap out there, but we'll go over that in a second, right? Once I'm in top lock, this is really looking strong. You need your head bias on the side. The weaker your top lock is, the more central my head is. If my head's like in line with Ruby, she can push her shoulder forward, and pop it through. But the more angle I've got with my head, push your shoulder through. A lot harder now for Rubes. So a lot of the time if you miss the top lock, it's because your head isn't off enough angle. You haven't got enough angle on your partner. Once we get the top lock, now I want to start to attack for the arm bar, right? So this transition is one of the biggest, most common places people lose the arm bar. This transition here is vital, right? So make sure, look at the way my legs work now. My knees are pinching and I do this with my knees. So now if Ruby pulls her arm out, very stuck. Opposed to now, if I went from here and just went straight over the head, there's that gap, now go, gone. So we want to have this next stage from top lock to this pivot. So there's still a squeeze here. This heel's pulling down, my legs on the back of my knees, so essentially I've still got a full circle of a lock. There's no gap anywhere. I'm holding the arm. Now I'm really engaging that back leg on Ruby's upper back here. This is engaging, pulling down. So it gives me a chance to get my knee higher than her head as I pull down. The next thing you want to make sure when you get here, your heels pull down and you hold the thumb up. We're looking for the finish now. I can raise my hips and get a quick little tap. What I'm doing is hyperextending Ruby's arm. So this is a devastating armbar, using your whole bridge, your whole body to attack that one elbow joint. Yeah, you can do some real damage with this one if you want to, right? So once again, we're here. Want it to the center line relative to Ruby, right? Make your head bias off to the side. The better angle you get, the better armbar you get. So you don't want to stay here and just go to top lock. Because unless you have a great squeeze, a lot of the time they can pop that shoulder through. Go back. So now, here, bias, jump over. The more angle you get, the stronger your top lock is, right? So now, I'm holding the arm. I want to make sure everyone watches this pivot. So you've gone center line, right? Top lock, this pivot here, look. Everything's still closed. This is closed off. Everything's closed in. Pinching down, heel down. Make sure your knee goes above their head. If you're lazy with this leg and their head's up, this is where you're going to lose it. Rip that arm out. Rip, boom. No control. If my knee is above her head, she is stuck. Pull the arm out. It's very stuck in my hips. Like if you're both wearing no-gi and it's slippery, yeah, it's still, you still got to hold it, but it's much harder. Once we get here, we get the finish. Now, commonly people fall over here if you're very aggressive with your heels and they fall to here. If this happens, great. It's arguably a better way to finish somebody because they've got their back on the mat. Yeah, so they haven't got the ability to stack you and stuff like that. So if it's a bigger person, strong person, this is arguably a better way to finish. Now I'm going for the finish of the armbar on the back. There's a couple of pointers I want to go through here. So if we're going to go for the finish, this is an adult video, so we'll get as technical as we can. If you don't remember all this because you're just a beginner, that's fine. But for you guys that have been around a while, have a look here. So how are we finishing with the configuration here when they're falling on their back? So first thing, obviously we need the arm, right? We need good control here. So commonly the arm bar will be shown with your knees just pointing up to the roof. That's fine, but ideally we want to pull our heels in, right? If I pull my heels in, look at this space here. So what we like to do is bias my legs out towards their legs. So I'm scissoring my legs this way. Makes a much tighter squeeze on around the arm here, right? I can also hold Ruby's legs so if she tries to turn away or turn in, she can't. So it's a good way to control. And I'm pulling with my heels here, right? And I'm getting a good squeeze, so I'm angled off. Now, once I get this, I want to go, instead of going through the center, I want to go across my hip, right? It's a stronger way, a more devastating break on the arm if you're going that far, across the hip bone. So when the arm's coming across, you would keep the squeeze. A great way to control is one hand on top, one hand below. So the one below is pulling. The one on top is pushing, yeah? So, you know, the way John Danaher refers to this as well, he calls it right, right, right. So right arm, right hip, right shoulder. So it all goes to the right, right? Opposed to the center. Because if you go to the center and you have a slippery guy who knows how to train and knows how to escape, they can, because they can move their arm to the left side, turn the thumb down. If you remember the escape moves, walk over the top with your knees, step over the top, roll to your knees, and they start to come out and they get out, right? So lay back on the back. So it was on the wrong side. So you need it on the right, yeah? Right arm, right side, right shoulder. Holding tight and pulling it across your hip. Because sometimes too here, you've run out of leverage, you start bridging to get more and more space to get out. So once we're here, we go biceps like this, gives you angles to hold the legs, and I'm pulling on the head here, and then I go across the hip like this. This is devastating for Ruby's arm, yeah? If they fall on their back, okay? So once again, I'm in. Chests are facing each other, right? So arm goes to the center, relative to your training partner, not to me. So what do I mean by that? You can get the arm bar without moving it across your center line. You can just have it like a shallow overhook here, yeah, or like a pinch of your elbow. However you got here, who knows? Like they might have tried to stand up, and you break their posture, and you pinch. Common way, right? Their hand has to hit the floor, keep them up. You know, there's Kimuras and stuff here as well, but you can just pinch here. You don't have to like let them know by like freaking out and holding really tight too. You can just pinch. Now I can got to get still the elbow to their center line. So it takes a little bit more angle. So you can control the posture however you want. You can put your foot on the hip, however you like to get a good angle across. So now look, the elbow is to the center line. Now Ruby's in danger for an arm bar again. You have to pivot a little bit more. You have to be a little bit more active from here. Now I can go from here and come straight over the top. Boom, right? So the same arm bar can happen from like an overhook or like a lat pinch, yeah? We go here, it's like angle, straight over the top. Devastating arm bar. This one as well, if you're doing any arm bars where they're under here, whew, so strong. Yeah, it's a lot more quicker. So we're going to do it step by step, and then I'm going to show you the more speed-based variation, right? I always say personally, for me, you know, all my arm bars from guard and mount, I personally like, I'm not saying I'm correct, but I personally like step-by-step control, you know? So from guard, somewhere near the center line, right? We go now for the head off the angle and top lock. Okay, pinching tight. By the way, you know, we all don't have long legs, so rotate a bit. So sometimes, you know, I'm a lot bigger than Ruby, so it's quite easy for me to lock my legs. But some of us can't do that. You can still do top lock by just assume my legs aren't locking. So the one's pulling over the back and you just have them open like this. They don't need to lock, but you have to be very active with pulling your heels down or hamstring curling, right? Once this happens, now the pivot's important. So we've gone center line, top lock, pivot, look. Make sure you got that pivot. So there's still a squeeze here, still pinching motion through my legs here. Before I go over the top, now I really have to make sure that heel's pulling down as I come over the top. Making sure your knee's above their head and you hold their arm to your chest, their thumb's pointing upwards, and you get a slight raise and you get an arm bar here. Commonly they fall on their back. You finish it, across the hip, right? Another little secret as well to make sure it's super tight. If they feel like you're losing the arm, you don't want lazy hips, right? So if I'm here and I feel like I'm losing the arm, keep your hips up. So start lifting up, Ruby and Tom. See my hips follow Rubes. See my back's off the floor. Don't let your hips stay to lift up again, Ruby. And see how this is space, and then they rip their arm out. Boom. Keep your hips up off the floor. So if you feel like you're losing, they're coming up, follow them up with your hips. Okay, show a different angle. Turn it around. So look, you can't have your hips in the ground. The more your hips are up and you're like this, the worse this feels for Ruby instantly, I can tell. Right? So my butt's just an inch off the floor. So make sure if you feel like you're losing the armbar, go. Just keep your hips up. See my hips follow. Go up again. Don't let that happen. Boom. Out. Right? Keep your hips up and engaged. Okay? So now, you can do, particularly from guard, even more so no-gi, when it's, you know, we've all trained at the last round of the class and everyone's just very slippery and everything's moving so fast. You can do speed-based armbar from guard. Super common, and it's absolutely fine because you're both in a neutral position, right? So we're in guard, no one's really got a dominating position yet. So if you miss the armbar, there's nothing lost, yeah? You know, if you've trained with me and you know, if I get to mount, the arm bar that I like to do, like from S mount, may take me a few minutes to climb up and adjust the feet and come over the top. So from mount, unless I was running out of time on the clock and I was down on points or whatever, yeah, maybe then I'd hit a speed-based arm bar from mount. Other than that, it would be just like a step-by-step crushing arm bar because you've got to mount. Why would you want to compromise falling off of being on top by trying to just have a speed-based arm bar? Doesn't make much sense because you're compromising your position unless you're running out of time. But from guard, you don't have any dominant position really. Like you might prefer being on your back or prefer being on your knees, but it's not classed as a dominant position. So speed based from guard, especially no-gi, especially when it's the end of the rounds of the night or whatever, and everyone's, it's very slippery and everything's fast, then you can hit it. So how would you do a speed-based arm bar from guard? So you still need something to their arm somewhat to the center line. Now it's all about this way you lift your legs up as you hit it. So I bring one leg up as I bias my head, so sort of like this. See that motion? So my right leg here is pushing Ruby as that's helping my head pivot, as my left leg is literally just pulling up to my face. I'm doing this. See that again? So here, my right leg's kicking as my left leg comes to my nose like this. Then straight over the top, boom. Okay, that does take a little bit of practice, but that's how commonly you'll see armbar, particularly in no-gi. Now I'm straight into the final position. Heels are pulling down, straight over the head, thumb up. You might finish it here. If they go to stack you, lift up, keep your hips up. See, don't let your hips fall. Or they could go the other way and fall on their back. Same thing, bias off, go over the hip, boom. Okay, so you've got speed-based arm bars from guard, quite acceptable, particularly towards the end of the round. But from mount, not. So I'll give you a quick demo of arm bar from mount, and nearly always this is how arm bars are done these days. The way just to fall off a mount and hit an arm bar, jump on your back for a second, Rib, so come back, maybe head towards the camera. The way we very first learn arm bars, like, a partner puts their arm up, you put their weight on their shoulder here and lift your leg over and fall down. It's not going to happen in a real life scenario. They're not going to put their arms up for starters. This is too much space here. It was too quick. There was no control. You're very much compromising your position. Very unacceptable way to think you're going to get an arm bar. So if I was on mount, remember arms to the center line is very much important. So a common way that you'll see it practice, and this is one way I recommend and one way I try and practice myself, is getting our partners to the center line, but up and around like this, right? Can we just move back a little bit? I'll just get where I'm getting to the slide. So here, so a lot of time I'm in like a low mount here. I'll get under the elbow and start creeping the arm up above the head. So now the arm is still relative to the center line. Yeah, this is where we start to come up to start to attack it, right? If the elbow's on the side here, there's legit no Juji gatame. Yeah, you can get the arm across this way too. If that happens, great. But commonly that's difficult to do. Someone who's practiced jiu-jitsu keeps their elbows here. They're not just going to let you pull the arm across. So commonly we do this, the spider walk up. We're going to be doing this in detail, by the way. Now once I get here, if I can get both arms up, even better. Now I come up high. So instead of having a top lock now, right, I've got my weight on Ruby. Now I'm going to start to go to S mount, so the securing, like when you put your leg over the head. So I lean and I shut the side off, yeah? So now see I've got this S configuration, so I've got either side of Ruby's elbows controlled and both arms. So she's in big trouble. Now I've got the connection to her shoulders. Now the strongest way, I believe, is keeping your weight on them as you finish. So I just lean to the side, bring my shin across the face, and we've got the same finish right here. Right there. You can fall off, sit down, and finish it right here as well. I would personally stay on top because you've got your weight on. Why fall off? May as well keep your weight on and finish it up there. So what I'm trying to show you guys is this is more about being armbar from guard, but then you can start to recognize the same step-by-step process. Our chests are still facing each other. So we need an arm to the center line, okay? So let's just say somehow I get it to the center line, maybe Ruby turns on her side a little bit trying to get escape out, and I go, oop, and I get the arm. Yeah, now I start to move to S mount. Just rotate the camera again. So I move to S mount, okay. So now I've got that configuration around the shoulders. Now I want to try and lock it off so I can lean, put my shin over the head, and finish right here. The same hyperextension's happening. Or you could fall back and finish it this way as well. Here or across the hip, like we practiced before. Thanks, Ribs. So remember, anytime your chest is facing your partner's chest, you're gonna need the arm to their center line, whether it's down here, here, or up here, relative to what position you're playing. Once you get it to the center line, then you're starting to look for the shoulder connection. Now, there's one thing in Jiu-Jitsu that is always relevant with every joint lock. Whatever joint you're attacking, so if I'm attacking the elbow, which we're doing in the Juji gatame, you need to control the shoulders, right? So once you get the arm across the center line, you need the shoulder control. Once you get the shoulder control, then you can start for the hyperextension of the arm. So that works for arm bars, but the same works with like your sneaky wrist lock. Like if I was going to wrist lock Rubes, I can just do this. It's not really much of a wrist lock, but if I control her elbow, so now I've controlled the elbow, now the wrist lock is right there. So you always need to control the joint above. Just jump in your butt. With legs, you can attack the ankle. This would hurt Ruby, maybe be annoying, but there's no attack until I control above the knee. So I'm attacking the ankle, I need to control the joint above. So with jits, it's always the same, always control the joint above. So with the arm bars, the Juji, we always got to control the shoulders, okay? We're going to be going over this in as much detail as I can over the next 2 weeks. So this is just the insight to it, to the start off, right? So as long as you remember the difference between if my chest is facing my partner towards the center line, if my chest is behind them, it's always pulling the arm away from the center line. Then we've got to look at some sort of configuration of control the shoulders. Once we establish that, whether it's a speed-based one or step-by-step controlled-based one, from backs, wherever it is, or the control of the shoulders, you're controlling the joint above, then you can start to hyperextend the joint. There's different ways to, like for your partner to defend with grips and stuff. They start doing things like this to stop the extension, and that's all the things I want to be looking at later in the week. But first, please guys, make sure you watch this video and understand it, so when we come back to training on Thursday, we can all move on to the next part of this week so we can keep the fundamentals cycle going. I've said this in the kids class as well. Please let me know that you're training. Like I love it when someone tags me in one of these videos, or even just subscribes to the YouTube channel, just to know that all of our members are out there and still doing whatever they can at home. So a picture like that's nice, or a tag, or whatever it is, would be much appreciated. And I'll see everyone back on the mat on Thursday. Cheers, everyone.